I have friends who are constantly high every single day of their life, and some of my friends started smoking weed at the young age of like 13 or 14, and they've just been smoking ever since. And some of these people started in middle school, and I was someone that was just kind of like a goody two shoes. I wasn't someone who really went out of their way to smoke weed all that much, probably until like, I don't know, senior year of high school. And even back then, I didn't really smoke that much. It's more of like a weekend thing for me. And even when I went to college, I probably only smoked on the weekends. And I don't know, the thought of being perpetually high just didn't really entertain my brain that much. I did like being high for a little bit, because like basically all I did was probably take like one or two hits out of my pipe, and then I would just kind of go home and I don't know. I was probably just drawing or something at that time because it was a good way to get like do something with my life, kind of just start drawing. And like after a long day of like college work and stuff, it was kind of nice to just, you know, sit down for a little bit, smoke a little bit of weed and draw. And I don't know, the people who are just perpetually high kind of scare me because they only know like one state of mind. If I don't know what you're like when you're sober, then I don't really know who you are as a person. Because I think people who are perpetually high are kind of just trying to escape something or escape reality. And I totally understand where they're coming from because I kind of do the same thing with my own thoughts and my creativity. And I just don't think smoking high, being high all the time is just honestly like very healthy for people. And this might be a hot take because people just love weed. And don't I don't know. It's just not necessary for me to be perpetually high because I'm not someone who's usually very functionable when they're high. And it was nice to do it when I was in high school and in college for a little bit. But then I kind of started growing up and I was like, well, I don't really function that much when I'm high. I have a tendency to just kind of scroll on my phone, do nothing. And that's just not really how I want to live my life. And people who are perpetually high all the time, I think they're just kind of hiding from something or they can't deal with life. And I get it because smoking weed does feel nice, but I'm just not someone who can be high all day. I'll just get nothing done, and that's honestly going to really bother me. And I don't mind if I do it every once in a while, but to do it every single day and to function on it is so much harder than actually just being sober. Even back in the day when I used to smoke before I would go to bed, because I've always had trouble sleeping. I always get a bunch of ideas and thoughts before I go to bed, and I'm always someone who needs to write down those thoughts or they kind of just stick up there and nothing gets done. And I used to smoke weed just to sleep. And nowadays, it feels like weed has changed. It feels like it's way too strong or something. I don't really know what it is because now, I mean, I don't really have much of a tolerance, so I kind of understand, but it gives me a lot of anxiety now, and I don't even smoke that much. So I guess it's just because I have no tolerance to begin with, and I have to build up a tolerance. But I would rather not build up that tolerance. Honestly, I'd rather just kind of smoke maybe like once every 5 months, 6 months, or something, and just kind of make it like a little vacation. I think it's good for people to reset their tolerance because some people have become so dependent on being high, whether it is to function throughout life, to sleep, or whatever it is people like to use it for. I don't know. I feel like people have no idea how to be sober anymore and just raw dog life. And I totally understand because life is not the easiest thing to deal with. But for me personally, I find it harder to take on life being high compared to just being sober. When I'm sober, I have like more, I don't know, I'm more productive. My thoughts are clear and I can actually like get stuff done instead of just kind of being like a slob and getting nothing done with my life. And I have friends out there who smoke dabs constantly, and smoking bud barely gets them high anymore because they just smoke the concentrate 24/7, and their tolerance is through the roof to the point where they just like don't even get high. And I'm like, what is the point of even doing that if you don't even get high anymore? Isn't it like the point of smoking weed is to get high and to kind of enjoy the high? But if you can't even get high anymore, then I don't know. I don't really see the point of it. So this video is a sign to just go on and give your brain a little break, let it get back to a normal state of mind. And most people can handle at least a tea break of a few days, but if you can at least do a couple weeks, you might realize that you don't even need weed anymore. And like when you try to go back to smoking, you might not even be able to handle it anymore because your tolerance just kind of went away. And it was kind of weird for me. I remember when I would take tea breaks, it was kind of just harder for me to get back into smoking because it just made me incredibly anxious. And it's getting me to the point where like I was getting panic attacks and I was getting too much into my head and I felt like my heart was going to just like burst out of my chest. And I was like, I don't really enjoy this anymore. So when I do smoke, I take like 1 or 2 hits max, and then I'm just at like a good level where I can still function and like still be creative. But it's kind of interesting of myself though, because when I'm sober, I'm already highly a creative individual. But when I smoke, I find it very difficult to actually work on art or music or anything along those lines just because I'm so used to it being sober. And I think it's the whole like state dependency of like how you do things because if you normally create when you're high, you're probably going to be more creative when you're high than when compared to sober. But when I do things sober like probably like 95% of the time to the point where when I do smoke or I am on any kind of substance that like it just does not even make me more creative. I feel like everything that I make when I'm high turns out even like more worse than when I am sober. And another thing is to explain like how expensive it is to keep buying like any kind of substance like frequently, whether it's just like nicotine, weed, or whatever it is. Like I couldn't even imagine buying weed constantly because you're probably spending like I don't know, probably a couple $100s a month. I don't even know how much weed is anymore because I don't really frequently buy it that much. I'm usually just given to it when I'm out or something along those lines. If you use weed for medical reasons, then this probably doesn't really apply for you. Like maybe if you have like chronic pain or something. But there are people who just smoke all day, every day, who don't have any issues with themselves. I just kind of think they're avoiding something, which is totally understandable. But I feel like you should definitely integrate your shadow and kind of figure some of that stuff out and integrate some of that and deal with your subconscious and your unconscious and stuff like that. People say that weed is not addicting, but people are definitely using it to escape their demons, which I totally understand. But you'll have to face them eventually. So, like, I don't know, like, I feel like avoiding it just makes it worse in the long run, anyways. And I feel like if you avoid it even longer, it just makes it even harder. Like, I don't know, to even face them eventually. So I feel like you should just rip the band-aid off and kind of just deal with you like I don't know, go to therapy, deal with what you need to deal with or whatever it is, and then maybe one day you'll actually be better, and then maybe you don't even need to smoke weed anymore. It was interesting though because once I stopped smoking weed, my brain became way more clear, and it was so much easier to think. And I was even remembering my dreams because every time I smoked weed, I never remembered my dreams. And because I think you do skip like REM sleep or something when you are high and you go to bed, and that's why you kind of wake up like super groggy. And a lot of people don't realize this, but I don't know. I have a friend who says that like every time he stops smoking weed, he has the craziest dreams or like nightmares or whatever like that. But he doesn't realize that like he's probably been skipping REM sleep for years. And no, your brain is like when you skip REM sleep, your brain has a tendency to try and make up for it. And that's probably what it's doing, considering he's just high all the time or like uses weed to go to bed and stuff. He's just telling me he's like, I don't like my dreams. Well, I'm like, that is kind of like you're gonna have to deal with them eventually. I feel like I honestly love my dreams. Dreams are so cool, whether they're like scary, weird, or whatever it is. A lot of mine have a tendency to be very surreal, and I really like them. So I don't want to skip my dreams, to be honest. But I don't know. Some other things I found out when I stopped smoking weed is that I was just a lot more productive as well. Because when I'm high, I don't have the urge to really function and be like I don't want to do anything. Honestly, I kind of just want to sit at home and just chill. And I don't even want to work on stuff half the time unless I'm like working on like art or music. But like I said before, it didn't even really work that much. And I don't know. I don't want to do nothing with my entire life. And sometimes it is nice to do nothing and kind of just lay around and just take a break. But for most of my day and most of my weeks, I do not want to just kind of sit there and do nothing. I kind of want to function and do things pretty well. And sitting on my ass all day doing nothing constantly is low key going to piss me off. And I don't really want to do that. So I don't think doing nothing is how I want to live my life or anything like that. But, anyways, guys, I kind of just want to talk about something like this. And I will just chat with you guys in the next one. Peace.